So welcome back to the killer version of the perk priority. I promised I was going to do this. I'm going to try and keep this one smaller. I'm hoping you watch the survivor one first to get a better idea for where I'm coming from, because I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to explain. So basically, there's going to be three categories. We have tier 3s, we have fillers, and we have intermediates. Intermediates are the perks that you don't necessarily have to upgrade, but you can if they're valuable. Filler perks are perks that don't need to be upgraded because the benefit you get is solid at tier 1. And tier 3 perks are perks that you need to get upgraded to get the full value. So we're going to jump right in. Nurse's Calling is a range reveal one, and it's more of a priority than other range-dependent perks. It is a tier 3, because remember, it is going to have a smaller range than your terror radius, which is designed to give the survivors counterplay. If they hear the terror radius, they can stop healing. So, it is very important that you get this upgraded. Agitation. What increases is the terror radius increase. It's actually not that strong. Because you still get the movement speed bonus, it's not that strong of an increase. So this is actually a filler perk. Barbecue and Chili is a very, very powerful perk. It is a blood point gain that gets increased. And unlike other ones that I talk about where it's multi-purpose, so you don't necessarily need it, this is something you want to focus on upgrading so you can get the maximum amount of blood points possible. Bitter Murmur is a duration. However, this is an in-between perk like Dark Sense because it is the last generator where all survivors' auras are revealed for 10 seconds. So that's what gets increased. It's basically the killer version of Dark Sense. I don't really think it's that it's in the same boat. It literally is. Blood Warden. This is a tier 3. This causes that once the gates have been opened, anytime you hook a survivor, it will block off the exit gates for 60 seconds. If you can time this right, it means you're guaranteeing the survivors are dead. Bloodhound. This is a duration, because it increases how long you can track bloodstains. However, this is not a perk that I really feel you need to upgrade because it considerably makes the bloodstains more discernible, which is more what you're doing, what you're using it for. So this is in between perk. Brutal Strength is a percentage perk, it's a tier 3. Chlorophobia is a percentage perk, it's tier 3. Cruel Limits, we're going to talk about this because what gets increased is the duration of it, so it's a tier 3. Dark Devotion. Oh god. What gets increased is the duration of it. But it's just not a good fucking perk. And to be fair, the increase on it is not that significant. So I would say it's a tier 1 perk. Even though it increases the duration of how long the effect lasts, it's still a tier 1 because it's a gimmick. Distressing. So what increases is the terror radius. This is a very solid terror radius increase perk. It's one of the best out there. I would get to tier 3. Dying Light. This is a percentage perk, so you want to get that to tier 3. Franklin's Demise. This is a filler perk because even though it's a tier 3, at tier 3 it's a percentage perk. The difference is at tier 1 you don't lose any charge. At tier 2 you lose 5%. At tier 3 you lose 10%. Doesn't matter though. At tier 1 it does its job, so it's a filler perk. Fervent Chase is a token related perk. But unlike something like Stakeout, it's very important that you get the additional tokens to get the additional benefit. So it's an intermediate perk. Devour Hope. Oh boy. Devour Hope has the haste effect increase. It's not that solid. Tier 1 is all you need. It's a filler perk. Haunted Ground is a duration perk. Tier 3. Huntress Lullaby is a percentage perk. However, you're not necessarily using it for the regression penalty, which makes it a filler perk. It's used mostly for the no skill checks, so they fuck up more. No Ed. filler perk. The only thing that increased is the movement speed gain. And this is the thing you gotta realize here. Most of your high perks are actually filler perks. Like on the Survivor side, we're talking about things like Prove Thyself, Self-Care, Adrenaline, just, you know, those are perks you don't need to increase. Things that you would consider staples here, like Huntress, Noed, Devour Hope, they don't need to be increased, they're fillers. Ruin is a filler perk. What goes up is the regression penalty. It doesn't need to happen. Hex the Third Seal, Tier 3. You need to affect all the survivors for it to really be valuable, so there you go. Infectious Fright, it's a duration perk, but it's not that significant of an increase, so I would say it's an intermediate. Insidious. This reduces how long you have to stand still to reduce your terror radius. So this is a timer perk. This is something you want to upgrade to Tier 3. Iron Maiden, this increases your opening locker speed is what scales up. However, it is not a significant enough increase to really warrant, so it's an intermediate. Lightboard, percentage perk, Tier 3. Mad Grit, this is a duration perk. And I would say this is something you want to get to Tier 3 very quickly because of how significant of the time is. And people say, well, you measure the time differently. Let me put it this way. If I can pause a survivor's wiggle meter for 4 seconds, I can basically pass by 2 hooks. In that frame of mind. I can walk past 2 hooks and put them on another one before they're able to wiggle off. Whereas something that is like, okay, well, what about Infectious Fright? 4 to 6 seconds is not that big of a deal for a location reveal. Make your choice. What goes down on Make Your Choice, or what goes up actually, is how long the exposed effect lasts. Tier 3. You want to upgrade that. Mindbreaker is intermediate. The increase of the exhaustion timer isn't a mandatory upgrade, but it can be nice. Monitor and Abuse is a Tier 1 perk, a filler perk, because the only thing that increases is the FOV increase, not the terror radius, and most people run it for the terror radius. So, it's a filler perk. Monster Shrine is a percentage perk, it's Tier 3. Overcharge, what increases is the difficulty of the skill check. That's Tier 3. There's a significant difference. Play with Your Food is a percentage perk, Tier 3. Pop Goes the Weasel increases the duration of it. However, to be honest, I would say it's more of an intermediate because it is 40 seconds at Tier 1. That's a pretty decent amount of time to get to a generator. I mean, I can walk across the map in less than 40 seconds. So even if I'm going to a gen on the other side of the map, I'm still getting the benefit of it. So it's intermediate. Rancor. What happens is, this is the amount of time that the obsession can see your aura, is what goes down, I believe. So, I would say that this is a filler perk at Tier 1, because you're really only using it for the exposed of the kill, and if you're using it for the survivor's location, it's, you know, you don't need it for that long, so it's Tier 1. Remember Me is a token perk, but it's basically a token perk. So that's something you want to increase. Save the Best for Last. This is a very special one, because Save the Best for Last, in my opinion, is useless unless you have it at Tier 3. So I would say that this is a must-have. This is a Tier 3. Shadowboard is an FOV increase. That is a intermediate, because you do get a significant benefit at Tier 1, but if you upgrade to Tier 3, it's good. So, it's an intermediate. Spies from the Shadows is a range one. It's a range dependent, so that's a Tier 3. Surveillance is a duration one, but it's intermediate, because the duration of how long the aura reveal is doesn't necessarily matter. You just getting that notification is the key. Oh, I fucking hate this perk. Territorial Imperative is a cooldown perk, so if you're going to plan on running it, you want to reduce it as quickly as possible. Thanatophobia, percentage perk, it's a Tier 3. Thrilling Tremors. is a duration perk. But it's an intermediate, because the duration is not necessarily what you're using it for. You're also using it for the reveal effect. If the cooldown is what was reduced, it would be tier 3, but where it's the duration instead, it's a bit like surveillance. It's intermediate. Actually, surveillance is tier 1, so... Tinker, tier 3, because of the duration of it. Unrelenting, tier 3, it's percentage. Whispers is a range dependence, that's tier 3. Bamboozle, it increases the volt speed and the duration that it's blocked, so it's tier 3, because that's 2 things you're increasing. Beast of Prey is a blood point gain. So, technically it should be tier 3, but it's actually going to be an intermediate because of the fact that you're not necessarily using it for that. Corrupt Intervention is a duration, so you definitely want to get that to tier 3. Deerstalker is a range dependent, that's a tier 3. Discordiance is a duration one, but it's a filler perk. That's probably the ultimate filler perk for killer, because you don't need it any higher than that. Once you know that 2 survivors are on the same gen, you go straight over there and you kick them off. Enduring is a percentage perk, that's tier 3. Iron Grasp is different, because what is increased is the time to struggle out of their grasp, so I would call it intermediate. At tier 1 it's effective, at tier 2 it's effective, at tier 3 it's effective. You don't have to upgrade it, but the difference in upgrading it is relatively significant. I'm All Ears is a cooldown perk, technically. It's the cooldown is what goes down. So you want to increase that. Thrill of the Hunt, the cleansing speed reduction is what goes up. That's a tier 3. Hangman's Trick is the timer, the sabotage bear traps automatically repair timer is reduced by 60 seconds. That's what goes up. I would say this is a filler perk because it's just useless all around, but mainly you're using it for the automatic 10-second repair time. Fire up the percentage perk, that's a tier 3. Knockout the range one, that's a tier 3. Overwhelming presence is, yeah, I was gonna say overwhelming percentage, but overwhelming percentage is a percentage perk, but the increase in the percentage gain is not significant enough to me, so I think it's an intermediate. Predator, basically this causes scratch marks to spawn closer together. How much is dependent on the perk. It's a filler perk. It's not really required for you to upgrade it. Sloppy Butcher increases the time it takes to heal. This is a tier 3 because of how much of an increase it is. Spirit Fury is basically a token perk, because every pallet that you break helps build that up, and the less pallets you have to break to activate this, the better. Strider increases the breathing of all survivors, and it gets louder for the ones that are in pain or the ones that are not. So I would say this is an intermediate. It's helpful, but it's not required for you to get louder. Surge is a cooldown perk. That's a tier 3. And Unnerving Presence, it increases the skill check zones. It reduces the size of them. I would say it's an intermediate. It's not a requirement. So the killer video is a lot smaller because it... the groundwork was already previously laid out. But again, I'm going to mention something here. Killer is different than Survivor because most killers tend to... Shut up. No one's talking to you, Audrey. Most people tend to not put a lot of stock in how a blood web works on killer. Because most killers are going to run the same shit. Let me show you Leatherface here for an example. On Leatherface, you want to increase a lot. I run pretty much the same perks. I've got Noed, I've got Ruin, I've got Franklin's, I've got Barbecue. Because these are like meta type perks. Most killers tend to run the same shit. So, let's look at the blood webs here. I have 2 shitty ass perks. Hangman's Trick 1 or Spies from the Shadows. Well, Spies from the Shadows is a range increase. It's a much more significant perk for me to upgrade. Okay, so looking here, we have Mad Grit 1 versus Third Seal. Well, the Third Seal is the one you want to upgrade because getting it to Tier 3 is stronger than getting Mad Grit to Tier 1, which I will then need to increase even more. Look at Piggy for a minute. We have Surveillance at Tier 3 versus Play With Your Food. The Surveillance Tier 3 is much more important than the Play With Your Food 1. Again, Pop Goes the Weasel 2 is better than Bloodhound 1. Spirit. Save the Best for Last 2 versus Overwhelming Presence 1. Now, see, this is a very easy call. It's the Save the Best for Last 1 because, again, you want to. That perk is useless unless it's Tier 3, so you gotta get it up there. Legion, Rancor 2, or Franklin's 1. They're offering me 2 perks that are both good filler perks. So I'm better off getting Franklin's 1 than I am upgrading the Rancor. Because basically, oh, the Obsession sees my aura for 1 less second over Franklin's. I would much rather have the Franklin's. So that's a brief explanation of how you can effectively play as that. By the way, the Demogorgon is now going to be called Audrey, so thanks for watching.